Today we're going to be hitting the highlights of 11.3, and then we're going to go back and do one very small part of a section in chapter 10 to cover Pythagorean theorem, just to make sure we've all got it. Okay, so we're going to start at 11.3. This is page 681. And this is actually our very last math lesson out of this book. Okay, so this is just solving using quadratic methods for different types of equations. So let's say we have x minus the square root of x minus 6 equals 0. So this is a quadratic equation that you can solve. First, we're going to change it up a little bit to make it easier for us to solve. So we're going to move this square root of x over here. So we have x minus 6 equals the square root of x. We added square root of x to this side. That's all we did. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this square root sign. And to do that, we're going to square both sides because that's what's going to get rid of it. So now we have x minus 6 squared equals x. Okay, well, now we're going to factor this, and then we're going to set this equation equal to 0. So to factor this, we have x minus 6 times x minus 6, right? That's what it is, equals x still. So if we use good old FOIL here, then we have x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals x. Okay, so now all we need to do is subtract this x, and then our equation will be set to 0. So if we subtract the x there, now we have x squared minus 13x plus 36 equals 0. Okay, well, now let's refactor it and solve for x. So bring your x down. 1 multiplies to get 36 and adds to get negative 13. Okay, so here we're going to have 9 and 4. 9 and 4 will multiply to get 36. If you add them together, they'll also give you 13. So which one is positive and which one is negative? So let's take a look at what our signs are here to determine what signs we're going to put here. First of all, we look here, this is a positive number. That means that both of these either have to be positive or both of them have to be negative. Second, come right here, since this sign right here for our negative 13x is negative, we know that both of these are actually going to be negative. Okay, so if we were to check ourselves and refoil this, we would actually get x squared minus 9x minus 4x plus 36. These combine to get 13x. So this does work. This is a solution. So now we're going to solve for x. So we have x minus 9 equals 0. That means that x equals 9. And we also have x minus 4 equals 0, which means x equals 4. So x equals 9 and x equals 4 are both solutions. Just making sure all this fits. Okay, it does. All right, so that is example 1. So please go ahead and press pause and try practice 1 on your own. All right, for the solution for practice 1, you should have gotten 8. Did everybody get 8? Hope so. Okay, moving on. Example 2, we have, let's see, 3x over x minus 2 minus x plus 1 over x equals 6 over x times x minus 2. Okay. This might look like a really difficult problem, but you just need to rework a little bit, use what you know about algebra, and you can actually solve this one quadratically. All right, so the first thing we need to do is get rid of all these fractions. We need to clear them all. So to do that, we're going to multiply everything by this one here, our greatest factor. Okay, so we're multiplying everything times x minus 2. So as you're writing this, let me get a different marker. As you're writing this, if you will think in your head, you're actually multiplying x times x minus 2 over 1. If you think of it that way, that will help it not be quite so confusing. So right here, we're multiplying everything times x minus 2 over 1. That's for this one. And for this one also, x times x minus 2 over 1. So we do that because that's what's going to clear this fraction here. So this actually cancels out right there. So we're left with 6. Okay, let's take a look here at this one. What are we left with here? This x and this x cancel out. So we are left with, write that in blue. We are left with x plus 1 times x minus 2. All right. And then what are we left with here? Okay, this x minus 2 and this x minus 2 cancel out. So we are actually left with 3x squared. So we have 3x squared minus x plus 1 times x minus 2 equals 6. Okay, let's keep going. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to FOIL this little section right here. Okay, so we have x squared first. Our outside is minus 2x and our inside is positive 1x. So we have just minus x. And our last is going to give us negative 2. Okay. So we have 3x squared minus all of this. So we're subtracting everything here in these parentheses. So we need to go through. We can get rid of our parentheses, but we need to sign change stuff. So we have 3x squared, all right, minus x squared plus x plus 2 equals 6. Okay, so now let's combine our like terms. So here we're left with 2x squared, positive 3x squared minus x squared. So we're left with 2x squared plus x. Now we're going to subtract 6 here and set the whole thing equal to 0. So we have minus 4 equals 0. All right, now we can look and see if we can try to factor this, or we can use quadratic formula. So let's put it in the quadratic formula. Solve for x. X equals, our negative, here's our a, our b, and our c. Let me write those in here. A, b, c. All right, so x equals negative b. We have a positive 1, so we just end up with negative 1 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 1 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 4, all over 2 times a, which is 2. All right, let's simplify here. So we are left with negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1. Here we have negative 8 times negative 4, which gives us positive 32 all over 4. Okay, So what is this going to give us? -1 plus or minus the square root of 33 over 4. And that's as far as we can go. That is your solution set. So go ahead and press pause, please, and try practice 2. Okay, moving on, we're going to skip example 3 and we're going to do example 4 and example 5, and then that's going to be it for this section here. Just checking my time. Okay, so for example 5, oh, I didn't tell you the answer for practice 2. For practice 2, you should have got 5 plus or minus the square root of 137 over 8. 5 plus or minus the square root of 137 over 8. That is your answer for example 2. Make sure that's showing up. Yes, okay. All right. So going on, this is example 4, now we're on page 683. And this says solve x minus 3 squared minus 3 times x minus 3 minus 4 equals 0. Okay. At first glance, you may or may not be confused as to whether this is actually a quadratic equation, but it is. You have one value here that's squared. You have another value here that has one variable, and then here's your C value. So here's your A, your B, and your C, and it equals 0. So when you have something like this where you have a repeated value in parentheses, you can actually substitute a different variable in there for it and then solve the equation and then go back and solve for x. So if we were to substitute for x minus 3, if we were just to say that that's y, oops, we just call x minus 3 y, and we rewrite this, we would have y squared minus 3y minus 4 equals 0. Now it definitely looks quadratic, right? So now you just factor and solve. Okay, bring your y down. And this is going to be what? 4 and 1. And this is negative, so we need to have a -4 and a +1. So then you say y plus 1 equals 0. So y would equal -1, or you could say y minus 4 equals 0, which would give you y equals +4. So now what you do is you're going to go back and you're going to take this back up here. And in place of y, you just substitute in x minus 3. So instead of y, we're going to put in x minus 3. So we have x minus 3 equals -1, which means x equals, add 3 to both sides, x equals 2. And then here you would put in x minus 3 equals 4. So here, add 3 to both sides, x equals 7. So we have either x equals 2 or x equals 7, and that would be your solution set. Okay, so press pause and try practice 4, please. All right, for practice 4, you should have got for your solution set 1 and -3. All right, we're going to try one more. This is, let me check my time. Okay, the last example will be on video part 2.